So with those caveats being laid out there at the beginning, let's jump in with the definition of an order follower. What exactly is an order follower by definition? An order follower is a person who does what someone else commands them to do, and who has therefore attempted to abdicate their free will and their personal responsibility for choosing their own actions based upon correct determination of the morality or immorality of a particular behavior. That is the definition of what an order follower is and does. Okay, so they're just acting en route based on what someone else told them to do without making conscious judgments regarding whether that behavior is morally right or morally wrong. That's the definition. There are three main types of order followers. I call the first type the abdicators, the people who attempt to abdicate their personal responsibility. These are individuals who do what they are told to do by a perceived superior without first judging for themselves whether or not the action they've been ordered to perform is morally right or wrong. They're attempting to abdicate personal responsibility for that judgment call. Those are probably the largest group of order followers. Most order followers fall into this category. The second group is who I call the well-intentioned, and we're going to talk about intention versus reality later on, the well-intentioned but incorrect. These are individuals who erroneously believe that they have correctly determined the morality of an action that they have been commanded to perform, and so they then willfully choose to carry it out. They believe that they are doing the right thing, in other words, although that belief is not true. It is an incorrect belief. And then there are the people who just don't give a damn. There's something deeply broken in them, possibly genetically broken. These are the psychopaths, whether primary or secondary psychopaths. These are individuals who consciously do recognize the immorality of an action that they have been commanded to perform, yet they willfully choose to carry it out anyway, knowing fully that it is wrong and violates someone else's rights. That's who I call the psychopaths. They just don't care, and they're going to do violence anyway because they just want to. Those are the three kinds of order followers. And I'd like to play a brief interview. This is from Adam Kokesh, who I have tremendous respect for, from his show Adam versus the Man. I have tremendous respect for this individual because he is a former order follower who developed a true conscience. He got out of the cult of ultimate evil and started exposing it. And he's going to interview a member, an active member of this cult, as we will see that it is, a typical order follower. So I'll let this video speak for itself.
Hey, what's happening, Staff Sergeant?
How you doing?
Hey, my name's Adam.
Nice to meet you.
I was in the Marines. I do a YouTube channel now called Adam versus the Man. You mind telling me what it's like being here for inauguration?
It's a great thing to be here.
Right on. Can I ask about what you think of President Obama?
Well, I support our new leader, and that's pretty much all I really feel about that.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Support our leader. Hey, our new Commander-in-Chief, go Obama! Tell her it's your moment to shine. Get off the
So when you enlisted, you swore an oath to the Constitution, right?
Yes.
And do you think Obama's policies are constitutional?
I don't really follow politics too much.
So you swore an oath with your life to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and you have no idea what that means?
Hey, sounds good to me, sir, if that's the way you want to put it.
Really? That's it?
That's it.
That sounds pretty dangerous. It sounds like following orders without question.
Nope, I just do what I'm told by my leaders, so that's pretty much it. I leave the politics to other people.
So you do follow orders without question?
From my leaders, yes.
Yeah. So if they told you to do something that was immoral, you wouldn't question it. You wouldn't wonder what the basis of that was, or where that order came from, or what its real purpose was. You just do it because someone told you to, and they're paying your paycheck.
Hey, whatever you want to say, sir.
Hey, don't call me sir. I was a sergeant.
There you go.
I worked for a living.
Okay.
But I got out and I found out what was, wrong with following orders without questioning them. And I found out that when I was in Fallujah in 2004 with the Marine Corps Civil Affairs team, we weren't really serving the people or protecting people. We were serving the politicians and the banksters and the war profiteers. I mean, doesn't that bother you to know that you're a pawn in all that and that you allow it to happen by just following orders without question?
Hey, whatever way you feel, sir.
Well, I'm asking how you feel.
It's not really important how I feel.
Feelings been conditioned out of you? You're a soldier now?
However you feel, sir.
Well, is there anything else you want to say on the subject for posterity?
No, sir.
Well, let me tell you, hey, you got to stop calling me sir, man.
All right, sir.
Staff Sergeant. Oh, all right, I see how it is. Well, there's an organization called Oath Keepers, and it's about people who take their oath to that Constitution seriously and want to make sure that things like what happened in Katrina, where there were soldiers and National Guard troops asked to take away citizens' firearms who were trying to defend themselves, or troops being used against the American citizens. They want to make sure that doesn't happen. Would you be interested in having a little a more understanding of your oath and commitment to the Constitution that you swore an oath to support and defend?
I'm good the way I am, sir.
Really? Doesn't that make you part of the problem?
Hey, if there's a problem, I'm not aware of it.
Is ignorance bliss?
Could be, sir.
Could be. I don't think you're as dumb as you make yourself out to be. I think you're playing me off.
Might be, sir.
You might be. I'm pretty confident in that, actually.
All right.
You're smarter, aren't you? You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I got a job to do, sir.
What's your name, Staff Sergeant?
Bob.
What's your last name, Staff Sergeant?
That's all I got, sir.
You're a public servant, are you not?
Sounds good to me, sir.
You don't want any kind of accountability for what you're saying, do you?
No, sir.
Well, you don't have any name badge on. Special Police, Staff Sergeant Bob. Thank you for your time. I hope you'll at least take the advice of an older veteran and think about some of these issues.
Have a good day, sir.
All right, appreciate it.
Yep.
That is a member of a cult. Order following, as I trust that everyone in this room just clearly understood from that graphic demonstration, is directly opposed to conscience. When that gentleman was asked if he cared about whether he was doing the right thing or not, he said, "I just do what I'm told by my leaders." And when asked if he wanted more information about the morality of those decision-making processes, he responded by saying, "I'm fine the way I am." That's the typical order follower. That's the process that's going on in their mind. It's a belief system, not based in reality at all, and certainly not based in conscience. Conscience, ladies and gentlemen, is knowledge. It is not action. It is not behavior. It is knowledge. Conscience, as a word, comes from the Latin prefix con, which means together, and the Latin verb sciere, which means to know or to understand. Hence, to know together. Conscience is common sense knowledge about the difference between right and wrong. It is the common sense knowledge of the objective, knowable difference between right action and wrong action. And people will then ask, well, what is right action and what is wrong action? Isn't that super complicated? Wouldn't that take like lifetimes to understand? No, it's very, very, very simple, actually. Right is that which is based in truth, and hence it is correct. It is in harmony with the laws of morality that exist inherently in nature, what I term
totally
natural
owned,
law.
Wholly owned. Wrapping the symbol of base consciousness, mind control, and pure ignorance around the neocortex of the brain. And look at police hats in England. They wrap this checkerboard floor right around the brain of the dupe, of the copy, okay? Wrap it right around the brain. And then on the third eye, they put a double square. Yeah, exactly. Right on the third eye chakra, right on the forehead, the badge of the police in England is a double square. But good luck with not wanting to admit that you're duped about it. Good luck. Enjoy. Enjoy what you got. Enjoy the state of mind control you have. That's the symbology that is employed in indoctrination when it comes to the education system. And that's simple symbolism. Symbolism builds from there, folks. This is building blocks. This is ABCs. If you can't conceptualize what I just laid out, and you can't understand the symbolic concepts that's conveying to the subconscious mind, once it is decoded at the conscious level, you're going to be very, very hard-pressed to understand more complex symbology. Because symbology gets very much more complex than that. Yet, it always conveys simple ideas. And in this case, namely, the person doesn't understand light from dark. They dwell in ignorance on the floor of the house in the base brain. The symbology of the black square placed on the crown chakra in ritual mockery of the non-initiated. So, it's the top of the second hour. Let me give the call-in number again and the call ID number for the show. Anyone that wants to talk about these topics, anyone that wants to go deeper into occult symbolism, anyone that wants to bring up any further information about the indoctrination system in this country, feel free to call in to What on Earth is Happening at 724-444-7444. Once again, that's 724-444-7444. The call-in ID number that you have to put in when you call is 83515. Once again, the call ID number, 83515. We're going into the second hour of tonight's broadcast, and I want to read a little bit more, continuing with the discussion of the indoctrination system and indoctrination in general as a vehicle for mind control. I want to read a few quotes from some good documents that can enlighten people to what's really going on when it comes to education. The first is from Charlotte Iserbeat, who I mentioned last week and posted a video to my podcast page. She wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. I would highly recommend this book. I would suggest that anyone that wants to learn more about the outcome-based education system and how it functions and how it was put into place, read her book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Her name is Charlotte Iserbeat. Charlotte is Charlotte, and Iserbeat is Iserbyt. Charlotte Iserbeat. This is a couple of quotes from The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. The traditional definition of education, like the one given in the New Century Dictionary of the English Language, is the drawing out of a person's innate talents and abilities by imparting the knowledge of languages, scientific reasoning, history, literature, rhetoric, etc. These are the channels through which those abilities would flourish and serve. I want to read that whole thing again because I think it is critically important to understand a good definition of what education really is, and this, I feel, is a good one. This is from the New Century Dictionary of the English Language, and Charlotte Iserbeat is quoting this in her book. Education is the drawing out of a person's innate talents and abilities by imparting the knowledge of languages, scientific reasoning, history, literature, rhetoric, etc. The channels through which those abilities would flourish and serve. The channels through which they would serve the individual. This is known as a liberal education, meaning it is the methodology of learning through which one is freed. A liberal arts education. I spoke earlier today via phone with John Irvin of Gnostic Media Podcast. He's going to be on the show probably in a few weeks. He has been getting into the trivium system of education, which is based upon the liberal arts, is based upon grammar, rhetoric, and logic. John is moving forward with his work in a great direction to help people understand what it truly means to think. What is being critical? How can we develop those tendencies in ourselves in a way that literally is like lifting weights? You want to build muscle, you lift weights to do that. You exercise to do that. You eat the right foods to do that. Well, there are methodologies to which one can employ that will result in a true education. And that is what the liberal arts are. I would encourage people to check out triviumeducation.com. It's one of John's sites. Going back to Charlotte Iserbyt's book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, after she gives this definition of what true education is, she says a quantum leap was taken from the above definition to the new dehumanizing definition used by the experimental psychologists found in An Outline of Educational Psychology. This is a book by Rudolf Pintner, P-I-N-T-N-E-R, which claims that, quote, learning is the result of modifiability in the paths of neural conduction. Let's just think about that, just that first sentence before we go further. He's saying learning is the result of modifiability in the paths of neural conduction, period. Period. But never saying to what aim that is, to what purpose, to what goal that may serve. Continuing with Rudolf Pintner's definition of learning, explanations of even such forms of learning as abstraction and generalization demand of the neurons only growth, excitability, conductivity, and modifiability. The mind is the connection system of man, and learning is the process of connecting. The situation response formula, is adequate to cover learning of any sort. The situation response formula is adequate to cover learning of any sort. And the really influential factors in learning are readiness of the neurons, sequence in time, belongingness, and satisfying consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, meaning outcome-based. The ends justifies the means, and the ends is all the goal is about. All the whole process is about. That's all it's about, the ends. That's it. We have in mind where we want to take you from the beginning, and this system is just a process to complete those ends. Continuing with Charlotte Iserbyt's analysis in The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, she says, an in-depth understanding of the deplorable situation found in our nation's schools today is impossible without an understanding of the redefinition in the above statements. Education in the 21st century will, for the majority of youth, be workforce training. Thus, the need for Pavlovian/Skinnerian methodology based on operant conditioning, which, in essence, is at the heart of the above dehumanizing definition of education. This sowing of the seeds, quote unquote, through redefinition will react the death of traditional liberal arts education through the advent of mastery learning, which we talked about last week when we discussed the Nazis' system of outcome-based education, which they called master learning, which they borrowed from the Soviets, from the fomenters of the Bolshevik Revolution, which used outcome-based educational to implement their system of socialism and communism. So it's ultimately, this is Soviet-derived. And of course, that system goes back further into antiquity. But in the modern age, it is concretized by the Soviet system. She says that this will react the death of traditional liberal arts education through the advent of mastery learning, outcome-based education, and direct instruction, all of which will be performance-based and behaviorist, meaning it will simply be based on a grading system, not true learning. It will simply be outcome-oriented to create in the person being indoctrinated the behavioral patterns that are wished to see by the engineers who invented the system, the social engineers who invented the system. That's all it is. It is to create a specific set of behaviors. And by any definition you want to call it, folks, that's called mind control. When you gradually give people only the information that you feel that they need to inspire a set of behaviors that you have in mind for them, that is called mind control.
In the last few segments, I've been talking about order followers and how they're simultaneously the least mature and the least developed spiritually out of all the people of humanity. Yet they are the most morally culpable and the most personally responsible for the continuation of the dynamic of slavery here on the planet Earth, of human slavery here on Earth. And I was saying that I'm going to make it, a big part of my future work to really focus on the dynamic of order following. Because people really do not understand how order following and natural law interact in nature. They don't grasp this. They think that it's some kind of a personal dynamic. And it looks like my connection is down once again. I'm not sure if I'm coming through over the air or not, but it looks like my connection is either breaking up. Seems like I'm having nothing but technical issues tonight. I apologize for that again, folks. It looks like my internet provider is still having issues. But I'll just jump right back into talking about order followers being the most morally culpable people for the continuation of human slavery, and how people who even look at the dynamic of order following have to come to a higher level understanding about how order following works in conjunction with natural law. That it isn't a personal force at work in the universe. It's an impersonal force, natural law, and it does not use human rationalization and justification to determine why you chose the behavior that you chose. All natural law, quote unquote, looks at, okay? What I'm really saying is it's not even looking at anything. It's a computer program. It's a computer. It's not a computer program. It's a computer, okay? It's like a computer. You input something into it and it is processed and then it gives you a result as an output. That's all. That's all natural law does. So you're programming something into it by the behavior that you take. And it doesn't ask why. Just like, does a computer ask, why are you coding this particular line of code? Even if it's an absolute jumbled garbage of nonsense that a compiler wouldn't even recognize, and you would just get absolutely bad output on the screen. No. It does not care. You can write all the bad code you want, and the computer is going to allow you to do it. Just like it will allow you to write flawless code into it. Okay? It's there to accept the input. That's what natural law, the dynamic of natural law, is there to do. It's there to accept the input of your behavior. And then, depending on what you input, it's going to give you a particular consequence or output. Period. And there's nothing personal about it. This is actually a gift of the creator of the universe called free will. We are free to input into the big computer called the universe whatever we wish and to get back the result from the universe depending on what we input or encoded into it, programmed into it, period. And this is what people do not understand about the dynamic of order following. They think that the universe, God, creation, whatever you want to call it, okay, sits there like a person with, a file on someone and says, well, Thomas here has a wife and 4 children, and he has to make a certain amount of money to support these people. And so he's going to take his job as a good little obedient order follower of the state and suppress and oppress anybody that his superiors in the state tells him to go out and suppress or oppress. And so therefore, I'm going to take into account, that he did this because he felt he had to he was backed into a corner. This was the only way he felt he could make money, and this was the only way he could support his family. Natural law doesn't do that, folks. Ever. It says, is this the dynamic of behavior that this being chose to put into creation? Well then, boom, here's more of that dynamic. That's it. If this is contributing to slavery overall in the aggregate, well then that's what you're going to get back as a result. Period. Doesn't care. It's not like a person that sits there and tries to figure out, can you explain to me why you did what you did? And then maybe I'll have some leniency on you. Doesn't care. And you know what? This is one of the things that I get the most flack, the most resistance from people on. This is why, because the ego doesn't want it to work that way in nature. This is the force of the ego. The ego wants there to be some justifications for why people follow their orders. It wants to be some reason why we can excuse these people. Wants to be some reason why the morality, the laws that govern morality in the universe are not absolute. It's trying to look for the relativistic out, and there is no such thing. It doesn't exist in nature. Okay, all right. Had another drop out there. I'm just going to continue where I left off. So, again, this is just like any other physical law trying to explain how these laws of consciousness work. They're just as unwavering and they're just as absolute anywhere in creation. And this is what the ego doesn't want to be true. What people ultimately want is for that not to be the case. They want to be the arbiters of truth, and they want to say that somehow creation looks at the justifications and the reasoning that was going on in your mind, however flawed that so-called reasoning may be, the flawed justifications that are running through the minds of people for why they chose certain behaviors. Okay? So, I have to do more work really clearly exposing this dynamic, and that's going to be the focus of my upcoming work. WhatOnEarthIsHappening.com. A lot of technical problems tonight. That's okay, folks. We will plod through it if we have to. Willpower will prevail, and no matter what happens, they're not going to stop me from getting this information out there. Whether it's just a technical glitch or whether it may be some kind of a deliberate effort, regardless of what the case may be, I'll trod on, okay, and we'll plow through it if we have to. but the information's getting out there one way or another. So going back to this, covering this dynamic of order followers, if you look at what an order follower really is, okay, and this is, again, I've put a lot of images here together over the next many slides, from slide number 128 through slide number 137. So it's just multiple images of different order followers in their regalia, in their cult uniforms, because let's face it, that's what really we're talking about, are cult members, okay? We're talking about people who are psychologically infantile, completely spiritually immature beings that really haven't developed any critical thinking skills for themselves. They may think they do from an intellectual point of view, but in reality, they don't really know how to undergo, to go through the process of truth discovery within their own minds, to actually go through that process of taking in information, processing it, weeding out the logical inconsistencies and the inconsistencies that are violations of natural law against other beings, and then choosing behaviors that are actually within compliance with the laws that govern right and wrong behavior. So they don't really do that. What they do is they listen to someone else, what they were told, and they say, yes, I will perform that behavior. I will perform that action. And that's all they do. So there's no processing stage, okay? There's really no input of information. They're not processing that data. They're not weeding out logical inconsistencies. They don't go through that process of truth discovery at all. They believe and accept that someone else has authority over them, and then they actually then simply move from taking the order, from receiving the order that someone else communicated to them through words, directly to behavior, directly to action, regardless of whether they've processed that command and decided whether it is in harmony with morality or not. That's what the definition of order following is not going through that processing stage and determining for yourself, based on the knowledge of the difference between right and wrong behavior, whether the command you were just given is right or wrong. And I've gone farther than this and said to people, I don't care whether you're given a quote-unquote moral order. If somebody orders you, help those homeless people over there, and you go and do it just because someone in a perceived position of authority commanded you to do it, not because you recognize that it was the right behavior to take, it's still an immoral behavior. It's still, I don't care whether the result is good, folks. If the result is good, the actual following of the order was still immoral. Because what did you do in the following of that order? You abdicated your personal responsibility that no one else can take from you, that you can give to no one else. You attempted to abdicate a gift of creation that you cannot actually abdicate to another being, called your free will decision-making process, to determine for yourself whether that action was right or wrong. And then take it based on that knowledge, not because someone else told you to take it. In the performance of the following of any order, whether it is, quote, a moral order or, quote, an immoral order, does not make a difference whether the person, what the intention of the order giver was. Even, I'll even go so far as to say the intention of, not only the intention of the order follower doesn't matter, the intention of the order giver doesn't matter. This is where the New Age community and the religious community have it completely backwards and completely wrong. Because what they want to say is the most important part of this dynamic and this interaction is the intention. And what I've been trying to explain to people from day one on this radio show and this podcast is the intention of a behavior does not matter at all. At all. All that matters is, did you take the behavior or did you not take this particular behavior? If the end result was something that harms another being and you took it, that's all that matters. That's it. And that's called a wrongdoing, and there's going to be consequences for that behavior. The end. It works flawlessly 100% of the time, all the time, that way.
And the problem here is, folks, the ego has a problem with those absolutes. It doesn't want to think that there's any such thing as absolutism anywhere in the universe. It wants to think everything is hazy, everything is fuzzy, everything is shades of gray, everything is relative. And I'm here to tell you that's not how the universe functions.